Okay, let's look at 14.8 through 14.10 just to get you started. 14.8, it really is not a linear to linear thing. I don't know why they put it in here. It's a good problem and it's real because light does go that way, but I don't know, it's kind of weird. But anyway, so they say that the brightness in candles, which is how they do actually measure things, intensity of light, C in candles, they say is given by some number depending on the light divided by the distance squared, which is truth. Brightness drops off as distance squared. So that's all good. So then they give us this situation here where you're riding a bike. Olaf is riding a bike at 15 miles an hour towards a street light, which is 10 feet high. We want to know the brightness as he gets closer. So clearly right when he's underneath it, it's going to be the brightest. So we know at 33 feet it's going to be the brightest because the light's only 10 feet away. Otherwise, he's always this far away, right? This is the distance. So the brightness goes by the square of that distance because it's got to cover a surface area. Surface area always goes by squared. So they tell us how to figure out K. You just plug into the formula 20 and you figure out K. That's real easy. So part A, when he's 20 feet away, the brightness is 1 candle. So 1 is equal to K divided by 20 squared. 20 squared is 400. So K must be equal to, multiply both sides by that. So K is 400. That's real easy. So now we know that our formula is C is equal to 400 divided by the distance squared. So the tricky part then is, what is the distance squared? You have to use the Pythagorean theorem, right? Because the distance is not 33 feet, this distance. And you have to use this distance. So that distance is, this side is always 10, right? Distance squared there. So the distance squared is always 10 squared. This distance is changing. It's 33 minus how long he's been traveling, right? So 33, I'm going to write it like this, 33 minus his velocity times time, the distance he goes because he's been traveling, squared. And this is the part that I did wrong first. I was working on this. Okay, they give you 15 miles per hour. Everything else is in feet. They want feet in seconds. So if you use 15 in this formula, right, it's not 33 minus 15t. You got to change that to feet per second, which you should be able to do. And then you can plug in and you can figure out when will the light on Olaf have maximum intensity, because for part B we're going to get a function C is equal to K divided by distance squared. And again, distance squared is 100, 10 squared plus 33 minus velocity times time squared. This is going to be biggest when this is 0. This is squared. It's always a positive number. So the smallest this can be is when it's 0. So this is going to be biggest when 33 minus Vt is squared is 0. Again, we got to change V into feet per second to figure that out. And then D, you got to just plug in, okay, you plug in 2, I guess, here, and you can figure out what, because we know the K is 400. I should just write 400 there. So, and then you just figure out when that will be, what is T. So just more math. Again, this is not linear to linear, but I don't know, it's a good problem. Okay, that's 14.8. I'll let you guys finish that. 14.9 is just doing 2 equations, 3 equations, and 3 unknowns. So this is all linear to linear. So if you look at A, here they say, when f, what's the linear function? F of 0 is 0, 10 is 10, 20 is 15. So that means you write down your f of x is always ax plus b divided by x plus c. When x is 0, okay, they say f of 0, that means x is 0 is equal to 0. That means this is 0. So you say 0 is equal to, and x is 0, so a times 0, so that's 0, so 0 plus b divided by 0 plus c, okay, which is b over c. So for b over c to be 0, we have two choices. Either c could be infinity, because any number over infinity is like an infinitely small fraction, right? So that's 0, but we're not going to go to infinities. We're wanting the regular old numbers. So in other words, then b has to be 0. So that's really nice. Right away, you know b is 0, and it makes everything else a lot easier. Now you plug in the other numbers. F of 10 equals 10. So you say, okay, 10 is equal to, now x is 10. So a times 10. It's always nice to just think ahead and put the 10 first, because a times 10 is weird. It should be like 10a, right? So we can think ahead. And b is 0. So we're going to have to include the b. 10a divided by 10 plus c. And our other formula is f of 20 equals 15. So 20 is equal to, let's see, the other way around. This is where you got to be really careful. F of 20 is 15. That means this is 15 and x is 20. So it'd be 20a divided by 20 plus c. We have these two equations. Two equations, two unknowns. Multiply 10 plus c on both sides, 20 plus c over here, and solve for one of them. And then plug into the other formula. So here maybe solve for a, plug in a to here, or maybe solve for 20a and plug in 20a's over here. But there's various ways to solve these, but you have two equations and two unknowns. You don't know a and c, but we can figure that out. Okay, now they don't give the answers in the book, but it's real easy to figure out if you get the right answers. Plug in what you got into the formula. You should know that 0 should be 0. If you plug in 0, you get 0. If you plug in 10, you should get 10. And if you plug in 20, you should get 15. So you can always check your final answer super easily to see if it's right. You just plug in the x value and you better get the y value. You plug in 20, you better get 15. Okay, same as for part B here. F of 0 is 10. When x equals 0, you should get 10. And again, when you get your final answer, you can plug that in. Does that work? When x equals 5, do you get 4? When x equals 20, do you get 3? So, yeah, always plug those in. Now, it's really nice, again, whenever they give us an f of 0. That means right away we know one of them. Because, again, that means that the top has to be 0. So, like for part B, when they say f of 0 is equal to 10, then we know that 10 is equal to ax plus b, except x is 0. So that's a times 0 plus b divided by 0 plus c. So we know that that's 0, which is equal to b over c. So then b over c is 10, or b is equal to 10c, which at least is a nice, easy formula. Now we can just plug in 10c for b and just do everything else with a's and b's, a's and c's, because we know b is 10c. So replace b with 10c, do the rest of the math that way, and then at the very end we can figure out b, because this is 10 times whatever c is. And the last one for part C, that one is nice because they give us the horizontal asymptote. That means that a is equal to 30. So now we only have two equations and two unknowns, because we know what a is right off the bat. So just plug in a equals 30. So our f of x is equal to 30x plus b divided by x plus c. And now we only have two equations and two unknowns. And again, you know if you did it right because you can plug in the other answers. When x equals 10, you better get that f of x is 20. So f of x is 20. And when x equals 30, you should get 25. So it's real easy to check your answer to see if you did it right. Okay, lastly, let's just quickly go over 1410. 1410 looks really long, but it's just another doing the same thing. They give you 3 points. They give you 3 pieces of information, which is what you need to figure out A, B, and C. They say at the shop, no advertising, get 100 customers. If you get $100 in advertising, you get 200 customers. And if you spend an infinite amount of money on advertising, you only get 400 customers. Okay, so let's see, the number of customers is our function here. So this would be, it's always tricky to figure out exactly what you're looking for, right? But the number of customers, so you could call that They're calling it Y, so Y is the number of customers. That's equal to an X here is the amount you spend on advertising, so AX plus B divided by X plus C. And we know that if X is an infinite amount of money in advertising, you spend tons of money advertising, then B and C don't matter and you get A. So, which means you get, and we know that's going to be 400. So A is equal to 400 because the X's cancel. Infinite, when X goes really, really big, the horizontal asymptote, you approach $400, 400 customers. So A is 400. And then again, it's just two equations and two unknowns, and you can figure out what B and C is. And then they just talk about the domain and the, like how much money you spend and all that kind of stuff. But that's the main idea. Okay, hopefully these are starting to make sense, and you can figure all these out.